Captain America is one of the most important heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and throughout his many appearances in the franchise, Steve Rogers has had to go through quite a few emotional moments. Chris Evans has done something unique when it comes to his Marvel co-stars. While multiple actors can claim they were part of the MCU's best movies, Evans holds a record that no one has yet been able to break. The actor appeared in at least one MCU movie from when he debuted as Captain America in 2011 up until his departure from the role in 2019. In that time, Steve Rogers went through a lot. He fell in love with Peggy Carter, lost her, and ended up with her again in the end. Marvel's Captain America movies had betrayals, shocking reveals, and more that shook Steve to his core. Adding to it, he was frozen for many years and had to get used to a whole new reality. These are Captain America's most emotional MCU moments. 10. Bucky falls to his death. Captain America, the First Avenger, 2011. Bucky falling to his supposed death in Captain America, the First Avenger. Steve Rogers has had to deal with many difficult events right from the moment he joined the MCU. First, having to prove himself worthy of taking the super soldier serum, Steve's life would not be easy just because he became Captain America. Instead, he had to deal with many heartbreaking moments after he became America's hero, and one of the biggest of them was when he thought he lost his friend. Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes and Steve Rogers were longtime friends who got the unique opportunity to fight side by side in World War II. After an exciting action sequence on a train, Bucky fell from a tall enough height that it seemed impossible for him to survive. Since Captain America still had a lot of work to do to stop the Red Skull, Steve now had to do so after watching his friend die before his eyes and being unable to save him. Captain America, the First Avenger has one of the MCU's most heartbreaking endings. The Marvel movie made fans fall in love with the relationship between Steve Rogers and Hayley Atwell's Peggy Carter, only for it to end tragically. From the start of the film, it was made clear that Captain America would sacrifice himself and his own happiness for the well-being of others. That was first exemplified when he threw himself on a grenade to shield those around him from the explosion without knowing it was never going off. That is why he chooses to go down with Red Skull's plane in the Arctic to prevent it from reaching New York City and exploding to kill many. Besides Steve's heartbreaking choice, the fact that he talks with Peggy until the plane crashes, with his voice abruptly stopping, is so sad. After crashing the plane, Captain America would not die, but see his life change in a shocking way. It was emotional to see Steve Rogers wake up in the present and realize that he had slept for nearly 70 years. Pretty much everyone he knew was dead or old, which meant that the life he had and the world he was used to had been completely changed. Captain America's man out of time story has always been a key part of who he is in the comics. However, seeing Evans bring all the nuances of what that realization means to Steve in that scene somehow made it even sadder. Adding to this is his quote in Times Square, with Steve telling Nick Fury that he had a date, remembering his plans to go dancing with Peggy, which heightens the impact of his new reality. While Steve thought that Bucky had died back in World War II, the MCU would reveal that Sebastian Stan's character had not only survived, but had gone through a major transformation. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, reintroduced Bucky to the MCU, now serving as Hydra's mind-controlled assassin. The film had quite a few emotional moments between the two best friends, going from when Steve realized Bucky was alive to the movie's ending. While Captain America had shown several times throughout the film that he could easily dispatch those who got in his way, he chose not to fight Bucky at the end. There is something powerful about the fact that Steve just let himself be repeatedly punched by the Winter Soldier because he believed Bucky was still in there. That paid off, as Captain America's love got through to Bucky, who saved him from drowning when the helicarrier fell. The MCU might have given Captain America another love interest and other teases of relationships that could have gone the romantic route. However, Steve Rogers always had only one woman in his heart, and that was Peggy Carter. That is why it hurt when the inevitable had to happen. Steve was able to spend some time with the old Peggy when he woke up in the present, but she was bound to die soon. That happened in Captain America: Civil War. Peggy's funeral was a heartbreaking affair, with Steve mourning the death of the love of his life while his stance on the Sokovia Accords was dividing the MCU's heroes. A visibly distraught Steve was one of those who carried Peggy's coffin, making the moment as emotional as it could be. Thankfully, the MCU would find a way for them to reunite. While fight scenes are often seen as exciting moments where the action can sometimes take over the story, Captain America: Civil War's final battle is easily not only one of Steve Rogers' most emotional MCU moments, but of the franchise as a whole. Steve knew that Bucky had killed the parents of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, choosing not to tell him so that he would not try to kill Bucky. That reveal led to the audience being able to pinpoint the moment Iron Man's heart breaks. Then, Captain America and Bucky engage Iron Man in one of the franchise's most visceral fights. After Tony takes out the Winter Soldier, only the two main heroes of the Avengers are left fighting. Things get personal, with Steve beating Tony and leaving his iconic shield behind. It is an emotionally charged moment that broke up the Avengers. 4. Steve Rogers watches Bucky Barnes turn into dust. Avengers: Infinity War, 2018. Bucky Barnes turning to dust in Avengers: Infinity War. Avengers: Infinity War's ending is not only the most shocking ending to an MCU film, but easily one of the most wild finales in movie history. Thanos' arrival made it one of the franchise's most fast-paced and chaotic entries. Pretty much every MCU hero was pulled into the conflict, with Captain America returning after he had spent quite some time on the run with his team.